United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, the UNRWA, has announced that it is currently operating 115 shelter centers across the Gaza Strip, hosting more than 90,000 displaced Palestinians. In a statement posted on X, the UNRWA warned that the deteriorating humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to worsen amid ongoing Israeli bombardments and blockade that are preventing the entry of humanitarian aid and commercial supplies. The United Nations estimates that approximately 420,000 people have been newly displaced since the collapse of the ceasefire on March the 18th, further straining already overwhelmed humanitarian services. And the UN World Food Programme has warned of a worsening crisis in Gaza, where nearly 2 million displaced people rely entirely on aid for basic food needs. The WFP raised alarm over an increasing danger to hundreds of thousands of Gaza's population. The programme expressed grave concern over the sharp decline in food stocks, warning that the region is on the brink of a potential humanitarian catastrophe. The WFP emphasized that this critical situation is compounded by Israel's ongoing closure of the border crossings, which is preventing the delivery of vital food supplies to the besieged enclave. The United Nations Children's Fund, the UNICEF, has warned that hospitals treating children and newborns in the Gaza Strip are operating under extremely dire conditions and lack essential medical equipment. In a post on its X account, UNICEF stated that the survival of children in Gaza now depends on a ceasefire and the urgent delivery of humanitarian aid into the besieged territory. The appeal comes as part of growing international concern over the worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where ongoing Israeli airstrikes and siege have devastated infrastructure, displaced the majority of the population, and crippled the healthcare system. And the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has called on the international community to break its silence and to act to protect Jerusalem and its holy sites. The appeal follows reports of Israeli restrictions on Christian worshippers during Easter, including attacks on some of them. In a statement posted on X, the ministry described the actions as manifestations of genocide, displacement, and annexation, condemning what it called collective punishments during the religious holiday. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry has condemned Israel for preventing the Vatican ambassador from entering the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and blocking West Bank Christians from celebrating Easter in occupied Jerusalem. In a statement, the ministry called the actions discriminatory and part of ongoing violations against Christian and Islamic holy sites in Jerusalem. It urged the international community and religious institutions to act to protect the city and its sacred places. Christian worshippers have attended Easter Mass at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem's Old City. Pilgrims and local Christians have been flocking to Jerusalem's Old City to celebrate Easter. Easter Sunday marks the culmination of the Holy Week, which begins with Palm Sunday. Israeli settlers have stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, Islam's third holiest site in occupied East Jerusalem. The settlers are reported to have performed religious rituals under the protection of Israeli forces. Under Jerusalem's status quo arrangements, non-Muslims are not allowed to worship at the compound. Israeli settlers have stormed Palestinian land in Khirbet el-Rakiz in the Al-Khalil Governorate in the occupied West Bank. Palestinian sources reported that settlers attacked a bus with stones in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood in occupied East Jerusalem, causing its windows to shatter. The Palestinian news agency, quoting local sources, also said the settlers stole 2 water tanks used for livestock in the northern Jordan Valley in the West Bank. Israeli occupation forces have forcibly removed a Palestinian family from their home in the town of Turmos Aya, northeast of Ramallah, and converted the property into a military outpost. Local sources reported that the soldiers forcibly evicted the landlord and all of his family from their home before taking it over for military use. The seizure comes just 3 days after the Israeli occupation forces established a new outpost on land belonging to the town in a continuing pattern of settlement expansion and land appropriation across the occupied West Bank. Under international law, particularly the Fourth Geneva Convention, an occupying power is prohibited from forcibly transferring civilians or altering the character of occupied territory.